Tell us about yourself.
Like, where do I begin with that? I'm Tony Kinnard. I'm 31 years old. I draw, I write, I make music, I sing, I do some animation, I've done some filmmaking, I've done some photography. I've pretty much been cartoonist since I was 8 years old. When I was a kid, my dream at the time was I wanted to be a video game designer. This was right around the time when Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, those were still new things. And I saw like all these worlds, these characters that were created for them. Kind of wanted to get involved with that, and I just like drew a bunch of comics and stuff on the side, kind of unrelated. And then eventually, it's like I decided, hey, I've got a means to tell stories and do it visually, so I went in that direction instead. A few years ago, I did a comic book for NAMI of Racine County about a character who goes through mental illness, what to do to seek help about it, that sort of thing. Kind of bring some attention to it. It was a pretty big deal. There's actually a news article over there from a few years ago when that was being done. The first sentence of the article is literally, Tony Kinnard uses his art to speak to the world. That's kind of how I've always treated it, because the last few years after graduating college and whatnot, I kind of treated making comics and making art not just as a hobby, but trying to build it into a career. Pen.
I might have to.
Yeah. I was diagnosed with it was either a high-functioning form of autism or Asperger's syndrome. The lines kind of blur between the two.
Tony was diagnosed as autistic when he was 4 years old at Children's Hospital by Dr. Crisco. He went all through grade school, high school, and most of college without any drugs at all.
For many years, I actually didn't believe that I had autism, even with that diagnosis in place. But I've had some issues in the last year or so that kind of brought a lot of that forth.
And meanwhile, Tony, I didn't know it, was going to see a psychiatrist because of the depression, from the autism, not being, able to function around crowds and stuff.
When there's like huge crowds of people that I don't know, it gets me really nervous.
They put him on a drug, and the psychiatrist put him on Zoloft. And Zoloft, if you look it up, is actually a drug that they do not give to women who are pregnant because it causes autism. So this was the worst thing they could have given him. He actually had a manic episode on it, and he got into a car accident. And he ran into another car, and someone got hurt in the other car.
Well, experiences like that, I've always been adverse about filling out a bunch of things on a form, I've done them. I mean, I've filled out job applications before, things like of that nature, but I've never been a big fan of it.
Tony does better when he's not on anything, And when he's, seeing a therapist, somebody he can talk to. That's when he does the best. My advice to anyone who has a child that's been diagnosed as autistic is try to keep sound levels down, even your voice, and be very, very careful about what medications your child is being put on.
I'd say the best recommendation is get involved, really. Get involved whenever you can. Don't force yourself into it, though. Otherwise, it'll just stress you out like crazy and it'll just make it worse. I would say just kind of let it happen naturally.
Weird ideas going through my head. It's like best express them through music.
Another kind of dream of mine to put together a music album. It's up on Bandcamp and feedbands.com.
And of course it works. Now it doesn't.
I want to take footage of that later for whatever reason.
Yeah.